And we are back with our continuing series, Conversations on COVID-19. And we've heard so many stories of people stepping up to help out, whether it's organizations helping out or individuals. And we have one of those individuals here with us right now, Liz Ennis from Susquehanna University is joining us today.
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You have good, and I will say right off the bat, you have the most amazing backdrop we've seen so far. There's just so much to talk about behind you. So if you could, real quick, fill us in on your background.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to the Susquehanna University Costume Shop. I'm the costumer for the theater department here at Susquehanna University. So thankfully, I've been allowed back into the shop, even though the university is closed, to work on what I'm doing.
Do you also you also teach classes there?
I do. This semester, I'm teaching a costume design and a costume technology class. So figuring out how to teach those online was interesting.
Oh, so you are teaching them online?
I am.
How is that going so far?
Better than I expected. I had to do some creative problem solving to figure out how to teach a sewing class virtually. But the students have been really great and have been following along amazingly well.
What was your reaction? It's been a month now, about a month ago, to when this all got started.
I had some kind of heads up that it was coming. My mother is actually a physician. She works for the health service at the University of Connecticut. And she saw the writing on the wall and warned me how bad it was going to get. And I just didn't want to believe it at first, but sure enough, she was right. So pretty heartbreaking to see shows canceled, classes canceled.
Let's talk about that. You were just starting work on.
Oh, I'm sorry, I think I lost sound.
How far along were you in starting their production there?
Well, we had just started working on our spring production of a play called Seeds. The show had just been cast. They just had their first couple of rehearsals, and the show was going to be designed by my costume design students in my class. So we hadn't gotten very far along, but far enough that it was still an emotional blow when the students found out that it wasn't going to happen.
How many costumes would they have had to make?
Well, the show was a bit of an ambitious one. It had something in the ballpark of 50 different characters. So it would have been a really great experience for my students to have coordinating those costumes. So I'm sorry that they didn't get to see it through.
So at what point did you think of making masks?
Well, I saw that, of course, numerous other costume professionals and even fashion designers, notably Christian Siriano in New York, were stepping up and making cloth masks to try and account for the shortage of personal protective equipment for health professionals. And so there's tons of patterns and tutorials out there on the internet right now. And once I got a good handle on the classes that I was teaching, I wanted to get involved. And that just happened to be right around the same time that the governor started asking that everyone wear a mask in public.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
So had you ever made a mask before?
No. I've made 18th century corsets, but I'd never made a face mask.
Who would have thunk it?
Yeah.
So how easy are they to make?
Fairly easy. A lot of the people who are making them, of course, professional stitchers and costumers and fashion designers have been making them, but also people who are hobbyists and home sewers have been also pitching in and donating masks.
Now, are there a couple different designs for masks, and did you settle on one in particular?
Yeah, there's a lot of, as I mentioned, a lot of tutorials out there. You will see designs for those fitted face masks that are kind of more shaped. There are ones that are kind of gathered on the sides and gathered in with, people are using even hair ties and rubber bands because there's a shortage of elastic now. The CDC has instructions on how to make a no-sew mask out of a bandana or an old t-shirt for people who don't sew. The design I've kind of settled on is a mask that ties on rather than using elastic, because as I mentioned, elastic is much harder to come by now that so many people are making masks. And it's got a pleated design, which looks very similar to those paper surgical masks that you may have seen before.
When did you make your first one?
I made my first one about 2 weeks ago now.
And how did it go?
Well, you know, the first one, of course, I was figuring out the pattern as I went, so that one took me a little more time. But now I've got it down to a point where I can, you know, make a single mask in about 10 to 15 minutes.
So how many have you rattled off in 2 weeks?
I honestly have lost count, but I think it's somewhere in the ballpark of 200.
Wow. So that's a lot of time in that room.
Uh-huh.
So what is this? There's a special aspect of the mask that you're making, and I'm really curious at how you decided to, the material you decided to use for these masks.
Yes, well, of course, because of the facilities and the material I have available to me now, the masks I'm working on are largely made out of leftover fabric from Susquehanna University shows.
You got some props there. Could you show some of the masks and tell us the costume if you know where it came from?
Absolutely. So this mask is one of the most recent fabrics from a Susquehanna show. It was just seen on stage in Susquehanna's production of Pageant of Agitating Women. So that's where this one came from. This mask and then this fabric that is ready to be made into a mask, both of these come from our fall musical last year, which was Pippin. And then these masks I actually had leftover fabric from a show that I designed freelance outside of the university. This was from The Color Purple at Theater Horizon last year. So I kind of enjoy the idea that all these fabrics that I so carefully picked out for shows that we were doing are now spreading out into the community and bringing a little bit of color.
Very much a lot of color. That is a very nice touch. Now, where are they going, the masks?
So these masks I've been bringing to the health services here at Susquehanna University's campus. So they've been going to the staff there at the health services, and then the health services have then in turn been making sure that they get distributed to essential staff who are still working at SU, the handful of students who are still staying in SU dorms. And I heard that even some of them, the health services donated to the local state troopers. So we've got some state troopers running around in Pippin fabric.
The images I'm getting right now. Have you heard or seen any pictures of anybody wearing your masks?
Not yet, though. One day when I went to drop off my latest delivery, I complimented the nurse who met me on the mask that she was wearing. Recognized that fabric.
So we usually wrap up our segments by asking how people are handling this crisis personally. So Liz, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. You know, having something that I can do to feel like I'm combating this in some way is good. You know, other than that, I've been cooking a lot more than I used to. It's funny, the number of theater people who are now turning to cooking as their creative outlet, since they don't have their usual outlet.
Liz Ennis from Susquehanna University, thank you very much for your time today. And I'm sure everybody out there that's wearing one of your masks appreciates your efforts.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
All right then, Liz Ennis from Susquehanna University, and that's going to do it for us on this special episode of Conversations on COVID-19, part of In Your Neighborhood. I'm your host, Chris O'Rourke. We'll see you again next time, and stay safe out there.